Welcome, I'm Angelica.
And I'm Gaia.
Today we're speaking to Sam from Batch London.
Batch London is a casual suit brand that is looking to raise the standard of how we dress and how we consume. Okay, well, so Sam.
Yes.
What is on your mind today? What are you thinking about? What's your founder brain thinking about?
Founder brain is thinking about how we can keep hitting target, which we've done for Jan and Feb, which is amazing. And I don't know if that's because we've got better at setting targets or because we're doing really well. Probably a balance of the both.
Mm-hmm.
We've always gone through life setting unrealistic targets, which is good. It pushes you, but can also be quite demotivating.
When did you decide, right, we have to go for realistic targets?
When you keep missing your target.
How long were you missing your targets for?
Well, when you start, right, like we're not that old as a brand. We're only 2.5 years old. So you don't really have any history. Even after a year, you don't really have any history because for year one, like, does it count? You're still learning the ropes. So you just make an assumption. You're like, oh yeah, well, logically we'll do this because of this. And in reality, it's very different to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're a little bit more grown up as a brand, setting our year 3 targets has been a bit easier because you have 2 years of data, you have 2 years of learnings, you have a bit of a better idea of what's realistic, how your business operates. And so you can start to pare back these numbers that you're a bit finger in the air and actually do it with a bit more logic behind it, a bit more planning. Obviously, that to a certain extent, it is still finger in the air because you're growing at a rate, but you don't know what that rate of growth is going to be, and you still don't know what your seasonality is and how that's going to fluctuate through the year. And there's new products, new team members, and all sorts. So yeah, you just have to make as good a guesstimate as you can. And I think we've probably got one, we're growing and we're doing much better, and we've learned from some of our mistakes, but two, we've got a little bit of a better grip on what that looks like for Batch.
I think it might be a good idea just to say what exactly Batch is and what your values are as a company.
Do you want the story?
Yeah, tell us the story.
So I started Batch because I couldn't find a decent casual suit. That was the initial premise. I'd actually come from the drinks world before that, learned a load about startups, knew nothing about fashion, but always liked to dress well.
Interesting. So you don't have a background in fashion?
No, neither do I or my co-founder, Julian. But I wanted this casual suit and realised that, you know, there was a gap in the market for this. I spoke to a few different people. Julian and I rolled around with the idea. Realised the timing of a casual suit was great. The way that we dressed to work could change quite significantly. We'd gone from this very formal in the office 5 days a week to post-COVID. It was a lot more hybrid. In and out the office, the workplace had casualised. I mean, even now that we're transitioning back into hybrid working being less of a thing and everyone needs to be in the office because you get more work done, the workplace hasn't got its formality back. And similarly, post-COVID, we got released back out into the world again, into pubs and bars and clubs. And I think on a social level, there's a transition towards wanting to look a bit sharper and smarter. So you've kind of got these two opposite levers. The workplace is getting more casual, the social environment's getting slightly smarter. And that's where we saw a gap that we could sit in the middle of those two things. Created something that we call a casual suit, which we basically define as, I'm wearing one now, obviously, but you can dress it up to look smart by putting on a shirt, tie, loafers, and it's very formal. You could wear it to a wedding and to a board meeting, but then put on trainers and a t-shirt and you're at the pub or date night or mum's birthday. And in essence, as that idea is developed, we phrase it as the what to wear when you want to look good. It solves the what to wear when you want to look good dilemma, which we kind of all go through, girl or boy, where you put on 3 or 4 different outfits and you're not that comfortable in either of any of them. You just throw it like, okay, I'm going to wear this one because I can't be asked to keep changing it. Whereas we think we've got something that you've got in your wardrobe that solves all of those problems and it will look good with anything that you wear. And then from that point, started looking at the fashion industry in a bit more detail. You quickly realise what an unsustainable mess it is. And whilst we all know fast fashion's bad, it's not until you really dive into it that you get an understanding of how bad it is. And the stat that always hits hardest for me is 6 in 10 items of clothing that are made end up in landfill within a year. So when you really start to process that, it's like, you know, for every 4 items of clothing that you're buying, there's another 6 going straight to landfill, which doesn't make any sense. So how does the world operate like this? That can't be good for business, can't be good, obviously not good for the planet, probably not good for people either. as your quality is getting ruined and people are fighting to claw back margin that they're losing, all this stuff that's being thrown away. Alongside that same thought process, neither myself or my co-founder were particularly conscious shoppers. So we wanted to challenge why that is. Like, why don't we care when it actually comes to spending money? Like, you don't really care about sustainability. If someone asks you, are you a sustainable shopper? You're like, yeah, of course I am. And like, yeah, I recycle. But like, in reality, there's not enough motivation there. What we're really motivated by is price and quality, particularly in clothing. So we looked at these two problems and decided that, or think we found the solution, which is making everything to order. The idea being that if you only make exactly what you need, cuts out all of the wastage, all of the overproduction. You're not creating the same problem, which is the key driver.
Yeah.
But it also allows us to deliver a significantly higher quality item for a lot less. Because as a business, we're not having to account for the waste, for holding stock, for returns, for big end of season sales, for stuff that we thought was going to work and it hasn't, and we've made loads of it. So we're a lot more operationally efficient. We can pass that cost saving on. And from a consumer's perspective, that's the motivation to buy something and wait for it, is because you're saving hundreds of pounds. The then nice to have is you're actually also saving the planet at the same time.
And I also think this made to order works in the modern climate. People are fine with that. Like these shoes that I have from Aloha House, I waited 3 months to come because I knew that they were being made by hand in Spain with a lot of love, a lot of attention and amazing quality. I think people are more conscious of that in general. So I could see why that works.
There's a split, right? So we're in a world where everything's getting more expensive. People aren't getting paid more, like inflation and pay rises don't add up, right? So for a lot of people, life feels tougher and therefore buying fast fashion makes more sense because it's cheaper and it's easier. And that generally ends up being the younger generations who are sort of fighting to live in London and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then when you get a bit older and you have a bit more money or expendable income potentially, and you've gone through that cycle of buying loads of cheap crap,
which just breaks,
which falls apart, and then you have to rebuy it every 6 months or 6 weeks, and then after a while you see that you've spent more money than you did before.
What's the phrase? Buy it cheap, buy it twice.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's a great stat I read about Patagonia that they, during the 2008 credit crunch, they had their biggest year ever because people know that it's high quality, that it's repairs for life. So when you are feeling a bit tighter, some people go like, okay, I'm going to buy cheaper, and other people go, well, if I'm going to buy it, it better last me because I can't really afford it.
Yes. So it's a really conscious, thoughtful purchase.
I feel like a big challenge for you is obviously, whilst there are a few people that already know all of this, a big part of it is educating and making sure that people are aware of what sustainability really means. Because I think a lot of us, I mean, myself included, when a fashion brand in particular says that it's sustainable, we don't really know what that means.
Yes.
And so how are you trying to educate people? Is that an active part of your marketing? How do you make that part of your message?
And in the context of greenwashing, because I think we're very aware of greenwashing too.
Yeah. That's the problem. And that's part of the reason we don't care, because it's like, what does that mean? Okay, you're sustainable, sure you are, but like, then it comes out in the news that you've been burning loads of clothes or
you invest in oil.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's very difficult to work out what's right and what's wrong. And therefore, for most consumers, we just end up putting our head in the sand because it's like, oh, do you know what? I don't know what's going on here. I can't solve this problem. Whatever.
Like the problem's bigger than I am.
Yeah, and maybe I'll save the planet in a different way. And so I'm just going to ignore this for fashion or whatever. There is so much greenwashing that goes on, and it's partly because of the model that we operate in, which is why we're trying to challenge it. Because let's say you're making 100,000 items out of organic cotton rather than non-organic cotton, which is much more sustainable. It doesn't really matter if 90% of those are going in the bin. You could use whatever cotton you want, but the point is that you're throwing it all away, and that is actually the key fundamental issue that's going on here is overproduction and overconsumption. So it's kind of a consumer problem and a business problem at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can't solve one without the other. So it relies on consumers being a bit more conscious, businesses giving other opportunities to shop more sustainably, and those two worlds aligning at the same time for us to make an impact.
So it's not either top down or bottom up.
Both have to happen at the same time, and probably to really tip the scale, there needs to be legislation to back that, to encourage businesses and consumers to start to change their habits. What we found from a batch perspective is the way that everyone's talking about sustainability at the moment isn't really working. We're not winning the battle with sustainability, particularly in fashion. It's estimated by 2050 that fashion will be account for 25% of global carbon emissions. 25%, second only to oil.
Yeah,
And this
Right?
is also only in the context of like economically developed countries. This isn't in the context of, so it's such a small percentage of the world is creating such a huge percentage of the carbon emission.
Yeah, it's mental. Like the stats are wild. But to your point, because there is so much greenwashing, because there's like lack of education, because people don't really want to hear about it. Like you don't want to be like going to make a purchase and it's like, this is how bad the world is. You know, like, oh God, I actually don't really want to hear that right now. And like, okay, on one side it's important. From my perspective, I think we're just communicating with people in the wrong way. So there's loads of amazing sustainable fashion brands that I've come across that aren't really doing that well, or they're still like struggling to get to the numbers they want. And it's because, in my opinion, people are talking about the wrong things. So for us, it's like sustainability is really a background message in what we talk about. Now, obviously, when we're explaining the business and the podcast perspective, like you get the opportunity to really dive into that. When a consumer comes to the shop, it's not really the lead message. The lead message is you get better quality for less. And that's
Because
why
that's
we're
what the
buying it.
consumer wants.
That's what the
Well, it's
consumer wants.
convenience, right? Because I think sustainability is such a complicated topic and it's very hard to sort of condense it in a one-liner that is simple to understand and that ultimately, as you were saying, enhances the convenience aspect.
And will
it's-
push the consumer over the line to purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to know why something's better, not just why it's going to solve the planet. And we're stuck in this mindset of like sustainability is going to be more expensive, or there'll be less colour choice, or it's comfortable, or whatever it is. And actually, it's like, well, you know, there's all of these other amazing attributes that your product has. So push those attributes first, and then by default, it should be that you're being a sustainable brand anyway. So it's not really a selling point. So if you actually want consumers to shop with your brand versus a fast fashion consumer, like you have to show them why it's better and then tell them why they're saving the planet afterwards. It can't be the lead message. So it's like, you know, when I talk to consumers, it's like you get better quality for less. It's going to last you longer. You're going to love it. You've got loads more ways to wear it. So you need less in your wardrobe. You'll spend less overall. You'll feel great. You'll look great. You'll feel confident. Oh, and by the way, you're saving the planet. It's like there's all of these other things that come first. And that's how I believe that we'll make an impact. And then beyond that, it's the whole mentality around it of rather than telling everyone you need to be 100% better, it's kind of like the same, an analogy that I use quite a lot would be like telling someone that loves eating meat to go vegan. It's like, that's not really realistic for me because I love eating meat. But if you said, why don't you try and buy as much meat as you can from the butcher so you know where it's from? Or why don't you go one night a week where you don't eat meat? It's like, well, yeah, actually, I guess I could probably do that, right? I mean, there's lots of contradicting arguments about veganism, so we won't go into that and whether that actually has an impact or not. But it sets quite a nice analogy for how we talk about sustainable fashion. It's like, start your journey here, make this purchase. If you need to support your beautiful suit purchase with a t-shirt from Uniqlo or from wherever it is, go for it. Doesn't matter. Just start doing something. Because if we make everyone 10% better or a large number of people 10% better, it's going to have a much bigger global impact.
Yeah, so it's conscious living.
Yeah, just be a bit more conscious. You don't need to be the best version of yourself.
So you were talking about growth ambitions before. How big was the team when you started? Well, I imagine it was probably just you and your co-founder. And how big is it now? And what are your growth ambitions? How big do you want it to become?
So yeah, when we started, it was just me and Julian, just the two of us. We actually were still working full time in both of our jobs for like a year and doing this on the side, which was quite tiring, as you can imagine. We're now a team of 6, soon to be 7.
Cool.
Which is great. So
That's
yeah,
great.
we invest quite heavily in people, because I think having good people that are working hard is really valuable. The ambition is to be the go-to made-to-order brand in the world.
Okay.
Right? That's a very high-reaching ambition, really in the smart casual space. So to own that niche. But yeah, that's where we want to get to.
And you target men and women?
So yeah, when we launched, we're a brand for men and women, which was always the intention, always where we wanted to be. We're starting to peel back on the women's range because we solve slightly different problems for men and women. For men, we really do solve that what to wear when you want to look good dilemma. For women, there are far more options. You've got skirts, dresses, blouses, like, and infinitely more brands in the women's space than you do for men. So the women's was accounting for 5% of our business and probably 40% of our cost.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You've got to make smart decisions, otherwise you're not going to make it anywhere. So the short-term decision is to pare back on the women's range. When we can, we'll bring the ladies' range back.
Was that a hard decision?
Really hard decision, and we probably should have made it years ago. Years ago. We're going around for that long, but like we really did give it a good crack. But yeah, it was a difficult decision to make because that wasn't our initial intention. That's not where we see the brand long term. It's not where wanted to be. But you have to, there isn't unlimited resources. If there were, then we would operate slightly differently. So we've got to do what we can with what's in front of us and make the smart calls.
So at what point did you seek investment?
We sought investment about a year in, maybe 18 months.
And what was that journey?
So the first bit of investment we raised was, well, when we launched the brand, it was an e-commerce business, so purely online. As we launched it, we did a 2-day launch party, invited all our friends and family. They're your early adopters, particularly when you're asking people to buy something and wait for it. That, they don't, if you're a consumer that's new to the brand, there's quite a lot of trust that's needed.
I didn't say, the trust isn't there yet.
There's quite a lot of trust that's needed. Your friends and family know where you live, right? So they know where to come knocking if you don't
hunt you down.
You don't deliver what you've promised. But in that event, we saw how important it was for people to touch, feel, try the product on, particularly something like a suit, something you want to find the right size and have felt the material and really get that sense of value that you don't. It's much harder to deliver online when you haven't got any reviews, when you haven't got word of mouth, etc. So after that launch event, we're like, okay, cool, let's go into physical retail. Let's go and try and find a shop. We're actually going to do a longer event for the next product launch. Ended up getting a pop-up shop in Spitalfields Market for 3 months. Realised that we had to then fit. We're like, amazing, we've signed this new space. It's so exciting. And we're like, it's massive. We need to fill this out with something. So off the back of that, went out to raise some investment, raised 50k off to two amazing angels. As part of what was planned to be a bigger round, raising all of our SEIS investment. For SEIS, which for anyone that doesn't know, is a government scheme, seed enterprise investment scheme, which basically gives you massive tax savings on whatever you're raising. So the investor gets huge tax savings to balance out the fact that you're investing at a business at its riskiest stage.
Yeah.
I.e. like before it's had any money put into it before.
So what relationship do you have with these investors? Are they also your mentors?
Basically all of our investors are quite hands off.
Okay.
Some have got a little bit more involved than others, but by and large, and I hope it's because they trust me and my co-founder rather than not actually interested. But they just let us get on with it, which is great because we've got a vision. I think we're quite relatively good business acumen, and so we're just getting on with it in our own way. We probably wouldn't have done it in the way that we've done it had we had advisors looking over our shoulder. If we'd asked an advisor, should we go and get a shop 6 months into launching a fashion brand, then we'd be like, are you done? No. But for us, it's been the making of Batch. So, yeah.
So what, if you could give a piece of advice to anyone who's starting in the fashion business with a premium brand, what would your advice be?
It's quite a broad question because it would sort of depend on what you're doing, how you're doing it. Like I say, for us, because we're made to order and it's a suit, there's 2 reasons there to want to come and touch it, feel it, try it, which is why it made sense to us from a logical business perspective to get a shop so we could solve that problem. But if it was a different product, it might be a different story. There's lots of amazing brands that have smashed it online before they've even considered going into physical retail because they don't need to. My advice would be to trust your gut and lean into the fact that because that's the way it's always been done doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it. So to look at it from your own perspective. And I think also from the barriers to entry for fashion are really low. It's very easy for anyone because of the mechanics that are out there to go and, I don't know, let's say create a logo, buy a hoodie, print it on the hoodie, go and sell it. That's very basic example, but there are so many brands out there that I look at. I'm just like, why are you around? Like,
Why do you exist?
Why do you exist? What is your reason for being here? And they may well have a reason that they're just not communicating or putting forward. But because it's so competitive, if you're going to give it a good go, like, you need to give consumers a reason for buying what you're selling, to try and solve a problem, and to give them access to something they don't already have, whether that's like a community or a cult, or you're leaning into, I don't know, Game of Thrones because you want to go after Game of Thrones fans and you're giving them a cool way to wear that. But like, a reason for being around, to not become part of the problem, to have a better time doing it, to be more successful, to not just like create it because, you know, you've always wanted to create a fashion brand. And
what's your opinion on cult community building?
I think it's really important. I think it's easier said than done. And I think you need to be careful, because if you don't do it well, cults, communities can lean into fads, right? Where it's like, this is super popular for 2 years, and if you're part of the community and you're not wearing it, then you know, you're a bit of a loser because you're not one of us anymore.
Can you think of examples?
But then it moves on to the next thing.
I guess, but with fashion, that is kind of inherently a part of the industry.
Can be.
Clothing is representative of so many things.
But it also can be representative of being an individual.
Absolutely.
As opposed to being a part of something.
Yes, but
bigger.
If you're trying to build a community, you're trying to make your consumers aware of the fact that by wearing your clothes, they are projecting a certain value or a certain identity, right?
Yeah, well, fashion's trend-based, generally. And like, that's why fast fashion's picked up such speed, right? Because now there's now like 15 seasons a year for some brands rather than the traditional 2. Or like, if you wind back, you know, 100 years, there was 1. You know, everyone in the 1920s used to roll around in their suits to go to the shop or the cinema or whatever.
True.
But yeah, I think fashion, there's sort of three stages to fashion. You've got the material, like what it's made out of, the function and the shape that it is, and then the what it stands for, like who do you become when you put that on. However, so that you've got the one side of it which is very trend based and like, let's be fast and keep up with the trends and create the new stuff and stand out. What we believe we've done is create something that's much more timeless. And there's pros and cons to that. Because it's more timeless, you don't lean into that cult community of like, that it's easier to grow a brand initially if, like, let's say we were, I don't know, going after skateboarders, and we're like, you know, if you're a skateboarder, you need to wear this because this is the current cool thing. Whereas our actual market ranges from 17-year-old girls to 75-year-old men. And that's super broad. So you're not going down the like, everyone needs to jump on this now to be part of this movement. But on the flip side, you create something that's a bit more resilient to times, because
and it's quite multi-season as well, your product.
Yeah.
How do you address the seasons?
Well, it's an interesting one, because every suit that we make and all the different fabrics is all year round. But for example, we've just released a wool herringbone suit. You'd hear wool and you're like, I'm not going to wear that in the summer. Ironically, it's probably our cooler suit, cooler than the linen, right? Because of the it's a wool cotton blend and the way that the material feels, and it's very light and aerated, but it's very hard to communicate those things, like, because we've got preconceived conceptions of what wool is. Obviously, like woolly jumper, right? It's like what you wear when you're warm.
What's your marketing strategy like?
We've actually just adjusted it. So played around with paid social and putting ads out. Consumers are pretty switched off to ads at the moment. It's very hard to win new consumers because there are more brands in the world than there's ever been before. Everyone's fighting for the same space. Meta's having a field day, milking everyone for all their cash. Every third post you see on any socials is an ad of some sort.
Yeah.
So like, you either have to really do something to stand out. I think you also need to be a certain type of product that's like an impulse purchase, whether that's lower cost of good or something that's readily available. Our suits start at $395, so it's quite a big purchase for most people. It's not like the actual value of what you're getting is really low, but it's still 400 quid that you're spending. It's like, you don't necessarily do that on a whim unless you're minted. and then you have to buy it and then wait for it. So we sort of there's a friction there between like see it, like it, buy it. So we've moved away from that and lent fully into organic marketing, storytelling. Just hired a full-time videographer in-house. So we can go and tell all of this story, because there is still quite a lot of education, as you guys will have just heard, telling the story. Once you hear it, it's about a 5-minute pitch, right? The first bit that I told you. Once you hear it, it makes sense. You're like, okay, cool, I get that. Now I'm starting to get excited about this. I might want to buy that or whatever. I can see how that fits in my life and why I'm getting better value. But it takes 5 minutes, and online you've probably got 10 seconds. So you need to do 10 seconds lots of times to be able to tell that story or make really engaging and interesting content. So yeah, that's our strategy. Make stories.
It's so interesting hearing that, because we do marketing, right? And so we have an experience of paid versus organic. And what we can see on insights is that your average watch time is 8 seconds, literally 8 seconds. So how can you grab someone's attention in 8 seconds if they're not invested in your product? So we're just sort of thinking from a strategy perspective, what is the best way to go down? And it seems that organic is the best way to create that stir and to sell your product.
Depends what you're selling. I think there are lots of brands that have become incredibly successful and will still become incredibly successful from paid social, because you know it's low cost of goods, low purchase price. Like health and wellness, I think will still do very well on paid social.
Well, I guess with premium brands, as you were saying, it's about the physical experience. So do you organize a lot of in-person events, of sort of field marketing? I would imagine is a big thing for you.
Yeah, it's the best thing about having a shop, right, is we've got this amazing space, and we really try and use it for everything it's worth. You've got this huge asset in the middle of London, and most shops shut at 7, and then it's sort of end of trade. But actually you've got this amazing unit and retail space. So from our perspective, we use that as a way of building community, of encouraging people to come back to the shop. So from a design perspective, we wanted it to feel more like a home than a shop. Upstairs you've got cafe area, places to sit and work, retail space. We wanted it to kind of, you walk in, you feel like you're in your kitchen, living room, and then come downstairs and so it's over 2 floors and it's carpeted, there's sofas, there's chairs. You're now into your like living room, bedroom, an amazing fitting platform where we host private fittings. We call it a fit and style, where we'll help people find the right size and right colour. So we're actually off the shelf sizing. It's not made to measure, it's made to order. It's a slight difference there.
Wait, what?
So made to measure is where I would make something exactly for your specific body shape. Much more expensive. You cut all the pieces out individually.
Be tailored.
It's tailored exactly to you.
But it's just made to order.
So whereas what we do is
you've got small, medium, large.
Off the shelf sizing. Lots of sizes, but they're off the shelf. So we've got those patterns in our factory, those sizes in our factory ready to go. At the end, we collate orders over the course of a month. At the end of the month, we place that order with our manufacturer, and then they go and make exactly what's been ordered. So it's allows us to make it much more accessible, a lot cheaper. But yeah, we host these fit and style appointments where you can come in, get a coffee, we'll guide you through, tell you the story, guide you through the journey, help suggest the right colour for your skin tone, your hair colour, show you what to wear with it, and then really create this amazing experience from start to finish that we hope builds brand advocacy. We've only had less. We've had 2 reviews that are less than 5 stars ever. One from a guy I don't think was in a very good mood on that day, which happens, and another one which was a 4-star review. So like we think that's testament to the journey that people go on, and this idea that when you buy something and wait for it. So between buying it and receiving your suit, we'll give you updates as to who's making it, how it's made. Behind the scenes footage from the factory.
Super personal.
So it's really personal. You get to follow the journey. You're a lot more invested in it. And then by the time it arrives, you've got that delayed gratification of having, like, it's kind of like boy math. You've spent the money and like it feels free by that point because
literally
you spent it months ago. It's like going on holiday.
So true.
It's definitely a thing. Yeah.
But then you're much more engaged and so experience is huge. And then I'm sort of jumping around a little bit. So there's the experience of coming into the shop and what that feels like and having a very personalised experience. Every member of the team can guide you through a fit and style. But then there's also leveraging the space for events. So we've done stuff like last Friday of every month, we have a barber in the shop who will give you a free haircut when you bought a suit.
Oh, great.
New suit, new haircut. It's a mental health hack. You can be having the worst day ever and you'll walk out feeling $1 million.
Rebrand.
Full rebrand. And we do live music events. We did a dating event in the shop the other day. Got a tattoo flash day coming up.
Dating event.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that. How does that work?
So I'm sure you guys would have come across a company called Thursday. Started as a dating app and now they do in real life dating events. They came down to the shop, hosted 100 eager singles, even split,
Teen
50
singles.
girls, 50 boys. I've always sort of been semi-tempted to go, but never quite had the balls to go and do it. So it was quite nice being on the other side of the bar and getting to just
Watching.
like see what's good
Observing.
before I like take the jump and go to one myself, see what it's like. But no, it was really cool. I mean, big up anyone that has the confidence to go down to that, because you're really putting yourself out there to, go and make conversations, make friends. It was nice to see like girls that I've never met before becoming mates and guys that I've never met before becoming mates, and a couple of people going home together, which is always cute. So
Great for them.
yeah, when they do get married, then we'll have to come back and buy the suit from us.
Well, exactly.
You can maybe even give them a marriage discount code.
No.
Okay.
No,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah, no, maybe.
Now
I'll
to
think
get
about
into wedding
it. I'll think about it.
dresses.
Yeah. But yeah, we do grooms and fittings as well. So brides have had all the fun for ages, and going with your bridesmaids and having this full day out of it. So we've created that for men as well, for them to come down with their grooms, get fitted for their wedding suit,
Yeah.
maybe all get fitted together, which has happened a couple of times.
That's a really good point, because it's a huge thing for women, but
Make a big
it's
thing
not.
out of it
Yeah.
for men. I want to know what has been your biggest hurdle and then your greatest achievement.
Yeah, I think our biggest hurdle is convincing people to buy something and wait for it, and working out what the right messaging is for that, which has taken us a little while. And like, as we've kind of discussed already, balancing the value proposition of better quality for less versus the value proposition of we all need to shop better and save the planet. And delivering all of those messages, from like, here's a smart casual suit that replaces a traditional suit you can dress up and down, that works in all these different walks of life, and we're saving the planet and you save money, and like there's a lot of information there. It's taken us a while to deliver that message eloquently, which we've now done through raising the standard of how we dress and how we consume in its simplest form, which probably then needs a little bit of extra explanation to really understand that. But that's our brand value. That's how we raise the standard, is the internal team message. Like, how can we always be raising the standard of what we do every day? So yeah, that's been a huge challenge, finding that message, finding that narrative, being able to deliver that clearly that people understand. And our biggest achievement is probably opening this new shop, which
When did you open?
mid-November, sorry.
So recently.
Very recently.
Did you have a nice opening party?
We had a good opening party, but it was like by far the hardest thing I've ever done, because we went in to open this enormous retail space with a 50k budget, which was like 5 times anything that we'd used before.
What was your runway?
For the shop, good question. We're probably going to raise a bit more money soon. Like, we're not quite at profitability yet, but we don't need much to get us to that point. So to bridge the gap and then do a big raise and go and take over the world afterwards.
Get it.
But yeah, we went into it with what we thought was a big budget. Quickly found out that it was a tiny budget, right?
It's always like that though. Like, money is different now.
Honestly though,
Spend.
it was like we sent this budget to our store designer who we'd used before, and the design he came back with was pretty woeful. We were like, that's never going to work. Can't do that. So we said, all right, do it again as if money wasn't an object. Came out with a beautiful design that we obviously fell in love with. Went and got some quotes on it. It's going to cost us £500,000. We had 50k. So then off the back of that, we were like, well, how do we compromise here? We don't want to. So instead, use the power of brand partnerships to allow us to fit out the space in the way we wanted, whether that was partnerships with tiles to get the wall tiles for free, or the floor tiles for free, or the coffee machine set up for free, and in
Smart.
return used our ability to tell stories and make content
Yeah.
Using this
and
coffee machine.
to connect,
Yeah.
exactly, and to connect two sets of communities. Everyone's really a winner out of that. And the big learning was, if you don't ask, you don't get. People are willing to get involved in that off the back of us having a strong why, a strong purpose, and hopefully a cool brand that, you know, everyone sort of wants to raise their own profile at the same time.
So with partnerships, do you also partner with brand ambassadors?
Yeah, we've done loads of work with influencers and celebs. What we've created is what people want to wear at the moment on stage or on the red carpet, where you look put together but not overdressed.
I saw somewhere who wore your suit recently. Don't tell me, the guy from Bridget Jones.
Yeah.
He wore your suit.
Oh, I love Bridget
Leo Waddle.
Jones.
Leo Waddle wore a suit. Yeah.
Big move. Did you see a spike following that?
No, we don't generally see a spike when stuff with influencers goes out, again, because we're a considered purchase, I think, by and large.
Yeah.
But what it does do is builds the brand. Measuring brand value is incredibly difficult. So there's a bit of gut feel in there, but it's a strategy that we'll continue doing. We believe it's working for us. It's very hard to measure it from a tangible perspective with the product that we're selling.
Great. So final question.
Yeah.
What will be on your mind tomorrow?
Hoping that I said all the right things during our little interview.
You did.
We're it's just all go at the moment. Like, I think that's probably in the nature of a startup. Hard to take the time to reflect when you're always just pushing forwards. Our goal this year is to hit our target, and that is it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you,
Nice
Sam.
one. Cheers, guys.